but
Like the thing that I bet like a lot of places are recognizing. It's a tool that exists, and so
Yeah.
you can't just sort of say like, don't use it.
Yeah.
You have to, it's about responsible usage and.
Yeah, I was reading an article saying that professors are now using ChatGPT to grade papers that are written by ChatGPT in the first place, or framed by ChatGPT in the first place. So
That's very meta.
I don't know about responsible usage at this time.
Yeah. That's a start.
So we have a quorum here, and we're being joined. Another one of
Greetings.
our members. Greetings.
house.
There's a little team at work right there.
Yeah.
Was that Vermont or?
No, I was
Oh, wow.
on a boat in the Exumas.
Good for you.
Terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible. 80 degrees every day and sunshine, aquamarine water, fish all over the place.
And you came back.
Beautiful.
And the weather was exactly like that here the whole time.
It was, that's what I heard.
We had lots of water.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I missed it.
Well, we have a quorum, so I think we're gonna roll. Is there anybody joining us online? I don't see anybody who showed up there yet. So here we are. I'm gonna call the meeting to order unless anybody has other thoughts. Here we go. Changes or additions to the agenda? How are we feeling about it? There are copies over there.
Yeah, I read it online.
I didn't commit it to memory.
Okay, so changes or additions, comments from the public who we do not have in attendance. Consideration of past meetings minutes. Now, my understanding is that we did not have a quorum for our last meeting. And so the minutes that we would have accepted would be for what, the March meeting?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so everybody on board accepting those minutes, or do we have any comments or any changes to them? Okay, great. We're good for that. We've accepted our minutes. Now we're going to move to the director's update, and I know there's a lot for our director to share.
Since we last met, we had Illuminate Vermont on April 25th and 26th. It was a wet 2 days, but all in all, it was a success. We hosted Green Up Day on the 3rd. Don't have the total numbers on how much weight was collected waiting on those from Casella. Had our first mobile produce kind of market on May 7th. We had, I think, between 25 to 30 bags of produce available, and they were all picked up.
Is that from Common Roots, the
Yeah.
produce, or from others?
It's from Hannaford.
Okay,
And they were all picked up within about 20
Yeah.
minutes.
You short sold Illuminate.
Oh, yeah,
It was wet,
it was wet.
but it was really well attended and
Yeah.
it was dynamic and people loved it. So
Yeah.
it was, in spite of being wet, it was a really good event. And the band that was playing
That was
Friday
good.
night, people loved.
Great
Yeah.
music, great music,
It was great music and
lots of vendors.
Who was the band?
So Friday night, so we had it set up, we had a main stage down by like DMV. So Friday night, it was Ultraviolet and they played all 4 hours.
They're pretty good.
they were
They're
great.
really good.
The jazz band that was down here was
and then-
really good.
Yeah, and then Saturday night at the main stage, we had Jenny Johnson and Judy Emanuel like rotate through. Friday night outside of City Hall, we had a Jacob Green, who was like a guy who can play multiple instruments at once. And then Saturday, we had Blake Madison, who's a 16-year-old playing out there. The library had, now I'm blanking on the name of the group on Friday start, but they were really good, the 3 or 4 guys who were in there. Al Getler did a ventriloquist show, which was standing room only in the auditorium. We had a circus act on Market Street on Friday night, and in total, there were like 10 or 11 food vendors, and then craft vendors, we had about 23.
Oh, they were on the street. Oh,
Yeah,
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 that's-
so everyone, we tried to shift kind of everyone outside. This year, last year, we had more people indoors. We only had a few indoors that just like required it based off of what they were selling. But it was just under 1,500 people on Friday night.
Good weather, it would have been amazing.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it
It
was,
would've-
and I just wanted to call back to
Yeah.
it because I think the event is really
Yeah.
getting its legs.
So we actually have a meeting internally on Friday. Like our general debrief, and then we'll start looking ahead.
Talk about the
next year.
dome over, Market Street.
We're gonna
Yeah.
get Dome over Market Street?
Do you remember the Winooski Dome?
I do, but we can't get Bucky Fuller to come back.
Okay, no, Bucky Fuller, Peter Clavel was the Winooski city manager.
Yeah.
Peter was promoting that.
Timing wise, like I think that timing, we've kind of stuck on now. So I think the end of April will be where we keep rolling with it. This past weekend, we had a few brunches. Spring senior brunch was on Saturday. And then we had our Mother's Day brunch yesterday. So we had 75 people here for that. Upcoming, we have the Glow in the Dark 5K on Friday. Fingers crossed the weather works out for that. We have 90 people signed up right now. The yard sale on Saturday. Memorial event, or Memorial Day event at Veterans Park later this month. As well as one of our community dinners at the end of the month, which we're sold out for already. And then new projects, we're putting together like a empowerment expo, which will be kind of created and led by women around like leadership, businesses, the speaker panels.
A lot of cool events.
Question.
So,
I see in the paper that, well, now that's euphemism for news online. There's almost no such thing as a paper anymore. But the state of New York has required all boaters who enter New York waters, which of course is half of Lake Champlain, to have taken a boater safety course. Vermont hasn't required that yet, except for certain, if you're underage. I don't know if that's something that we would get into for people who are interested in doing it. I suspect that the Coast Guard has a course that they're offering, but there's gonna be a lot of people this year in particular, because it's the first year. Cause it's almost impossible to go out on the lake and not go into New York waters.
Sure, yeah. We do, and this was before I started here, we offer, like, we don't really like, we're not coordinating it per se, but we do have information on our website, which directs you to, let me see,
The voter safety course.
yeah, like the online voter safety. Let me see if I can, which is through the state. Yeah, so we like kind of have it on our website. We don't really promote it, which if you're saying this is something new, it might be something worth
That's
like
new
at least
this year, yeah.
promoting people that, hey, we are doing it.
I'll look at the website, but
Yeah, yeah.
it seems like.
Bless you.
Okay,
Quick question, how much garbage was collected for cleanup day?
So I don't have the total
Okay.
weight, like I submitted the paperwork to Gisela, but they haven't sent over.
there's a
the-
little sprinkly for that too,
It
wasn't
rained, yeah, it rained all
Yeah, it was pretty wet.
morning.
it? Yeah.
Like, basing it by looking at it, the dumpster was like filled. I mean, people were still coming consistently. I don't know if it's as much as last year. Luckily, we were there Saturday morning, but the dumpster was there all weekend. So even after I left, I don't know how many more people came and dumped stuff.
Thank you.
Anything to add on the report?
Just shout out on, I saw there was some new painted, it's probably DPW. I'm not
On
sure.
the shared use path,
Yeah,
yeah, I just saw
kind
that.
of like biking.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah,
kudos to
that's
you
DP
guys for.
that's- Yeah, DPW was
doing
gonna.
that, for sure.
And when do they prune the evergreens, like at the Overlook Park, the. there's
So
some
the,
evergreens that are
like
starting to get-
arborist, I don't know when he specifically does that. The other day he was doing tree work at Veterans. So I would imagine he's like working his way through, but they just hired, it was last month maybe, the arborist full time.
Right.
Okay. Moving on. Public open house review / advisory group. Anything to share, Brett, or or did Alistair attend?
Alistair went, I was at the final four.
And so he was unavailable for this meeting, so we don't have a whole lot to add, but Roy, are you on that steering committee or
Which
whatever?
one?
For the master planning process?
We met at J.C. Park on Thursday,
Okay,
and it was mostly just an informational meeting. They were trying to gather more information for the planning process. Hoping to get the advisory committee together again in June. And they seem to be moving forward pretty well. They have an internal survey app
Yeah, yeah.
for
For the
for
advisory
getting
group.
people to give them feedback about different parks. And that's about all I know in terms of what's going on.
The so CRO, I was talking to Carolyn, who in the joint NRCC Rec and Park meeting a while back, she was here. So she's going to be coordinating. She wants to do 4 separate committee meetings, which I would imagine the first one's you're gonna have to.
joint committee meetings?
No, separate. So she's looking to come to you guys twice and NRCC twice.
Okay.
But I'll keep you posted because I wouldn't be shocked if she wants to do one in June.
Is there any talk of a joint?
And was she talking about doing a joint one also?
I don't know. In the email that she sent me, she said she wants to do 4 of them to rec and to, there might be a joint one. As well, survey wise, there's from, when we were there the other day, I think a little over 100 people have filled out the survey already.
Where's that being disseminated?
So it's on the website now, and we're working with Andy to put it in City News, which will then also be Front Porch Forum. I've put it in like the recreation e-newsletter, and then we also have signs up at our parks, just that you can scan in QR code. And then-
Instagram or Facebook yet?
What's up?
Have you tried?
I've put it on Facebook, yeah.
You have, how about Instagram?
Instagram, I don't know if I did. We don't get a whole lot of
Yeah.
love on Instagram.
And Carolyn was talking about putting some posters up
Yeah,
Healthy
at local
living
businesses, yeah.
in other locations to try to get further.
And then we have gotten now, which depending on where you guys came in today, the meeting in a box is downstairs, so that's actually the second set. We've already filled one up and given it back to them, but that went out. Let me see, I put that downstairs on the 1st, so we're starting to bring that to our events as well.
It was interesting to say, I stopped, come and looked at it. The swimming pool
Mhm.
had by far the
Mhm.
most votes of anything. Which I was like,
Yeah, that got hit pretty hard. We had it at the Mother's Day brunch yesterday, and that got hit pretty hard with those families. So it's been event wise for us, we had it at paint night on Friday, the senior brunch on Saturday, and then ours, or our Mother's Day brunch on yesterday, and we'll keep taking it around. The open house, since we haven't really met since the actual open house, was well attended, and it was a good mix of people. More, and Laura, you can chime in too, I think it was more active rec people
They drew
there,
more rec people than
like,
than
than
open space people.
yeah.
And it was,
But there was a good turnout from both.
it was definitely the best attended open house I think that I've been to in a very long time. It's great. Got a lot of turnout.
That's good for the process.
That's right.
Okay, I'm looking at our agenda and you see number 5, but I'm wondering if we might address 6, 7, and 8, which may go by pretty quickly and then we can devote
That was fun.
the rest of our, I mean, it's open space fun, but it's also the process, the master planning process. And we've got a nice map here that we may want to spend a minute discussing. So in any, 6 and 7 are almost kind of the same upcoming volunteer need. No, actually, they're not.
What, yeah.
So the volunteer needs have to do with supporting the programming
Yeah.
that you're doing. And
Yep.
Adam, you
So
want to share a little? of that?
Coming up with our events, there's nothing really this month, although we could use some help if you guys are interested in our community dinner. Helping with serving to the public there.
What's the
And-
date on that?
That's May 30th. So the way we've done it a couple of different ways. It kind of depends on the caterer. But we like help the buffet style, handing out the food, going through there.
And that is a senior center or?
It's right downstairs. And then it runs 5:30 to 7 is the time.
And volunteers need to stay later for cleanup.
I mean, not really. The cleanup's pretty
Okay.
simple. We use paper plates,
Yeah.
disposable stuff. And then the caterer coordinates the food. But basically, I mean, if you guys are able to, if you want to, or let me know afterwards, I mean, it would be coming like 5:15-ish to 7.
So a couple hours.
Yeah. And then just looking ahead into the summer, SB Night Out starts up June 19th, runs every Thursday through July, which will be needing some help for that as well when it comes to the entry points, bike valet.
It's the first June 19th.
June 19th. And then it's every Thursday minus July 3rd, because we're not doing one with the fireworks.
It technically didn't you change the start time?
So it's 6 to 8, yeah. Actually, I take that back, 5:30 to 8.
Okay, so that's
The band is still 6 to 8, but the event's 5:30 to 8. But we'll need some bodies this year, helping with the entry gates as well as.
As well as what?
What's that?
The
Bike
valet.
valet.
Bike
Oh,
valet, yep.
make some pretty good coin if you wanna help out with that.
Oh, is that right? Do
Actually,
they
last
tip
year
you? No.
I was able to hawk a couple of the bikes. I did.
Yeah. Some of those electric bikes, you can get pretty good money for those.
Yeah.
You were recorded, say.
That was a joke for the record.
I was driving through town today and there were a bunch of kids riding electric
Really?
scooters. Yeah, so those electric motorized vehicles are becoming more and more common. And of course, like sort of a segue on, your rec paths. That type of activity is only going to continue increases. Burlington obviously, wants to police their waterfront bike path. But I'm sure that there may be prudent for reminders to be sent out to the community now that warm weather is here. And people will be frequenting the paths and remind them maybe that speed.
That's an ongoing discussion in
discouraged.
the, in the bike ped committee.
Yeah.
And they're actually talking about what kind of regulation is gonna make sense going forward as this becomes a bigger and bigger issue.
Yeah, some of these go 25, 30 miles an hour with no pedaling involved at all.
Yeah.
And go whizzing by. And why those aren't like registered with the state as opposed to a moped or a scooter, I don't know. It's a whole new world.
Some communities are outlawing them on their.
The ones that go over 20 miles an hour. And over time, I mean, the whole active transportation plan is around trying to get people out of cars. And as e-bikes catch on seasonally, the goal is for it to become a transportation mode. And it's gonna just grow in its impact.
So stay tuned
Yeah.
for the conversations that occur over behaviors.
There's categories of e-bikes, those that that propel themselves without any of the
Pedaling.
rider's effort, and those that you have to actually pedal, then it'll just help you.
Yeah.
So it may be an issue of certain categories not being favored.
And then you have enforcement issues. We can't enforce our road laws right now, so. But there were two other things to mention in terms of meetings. At our council retreat last week, there was a discussion of trying to at least once or twice a year have an all committee meeting with the council as an all committee meeting to get the chairs of all the committees together to talk about what's going on in all the separate committees, so that there's more interaction and you guys are aware of what's going on and how it relates to what you guys are doing. And in that vein, there was one other discussion, particularly the NRCC had been asking repeatedly about how they as a committee could interface with the development review process. And there have been different conversations about it. The clear direction is that if Parks and Rec wants to monitor the DRB and see what's happening, individuals can go to a meeting and say, I'm a Park and Rec member, and we want to know if you're considering this, et cetera. But there is no direct input from committees to the planning process, except from a policy standpoint, when ordinances and development regulations, et cetera, are being developed. So hasn't been a big question here, but if you want to have input into a project that's being developed because you think there should be a park or different amenities, it's something that you can do. You can talk about it as a committee, but it's something that you can only do as individual residents. So the committees aren't getting involved in the planning and development process.
There was a time when we were kind of an official stop on the committee tour that applicants were encouraged to do.
Yeah.
Like fire and police. And there was also a time when we had pretty ambitious liaison assignments on the committee. It proved to be, too ambitious, given the number of committees, and a lot of times there really wasn't much to monitor. I do know that I keep my eye on the
On the
DRB,
DRB, yeah,
and I've reached out on occasion to Marla. to
and you
have a
guys as a
conversation.
committee can talk about keeping an eye on it if that's important to you.
But not
Directly
as a
But not be
committee.
direct, and I was on the DRB in Shelburne, and all the committees were contacted at sketch plan to have it input,
It was
and
a preliminary plan requirement.
what's that?
It was a preliminary plan requirement. I was URB coordinator at Shelburne.
Yeah, and South Burlington has chosen very deliberately not to do that. To let the LDRs be the driving and the planning office be the driving engine for development to try and help streamline the way things move forward. I think you were doing it when I was still on the DRB, maybe.
Probably a little after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked around Kennedy Drive, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. Connections.
Yeah.
So, that's just an update on both of those. So there's gonna be an effort to have all committee meetings to brainstorm and to coordinate what's going on in all the different areas.
Yeah, that would be, I'm sure that would be welcomed. Go ahead.
Does it make sense as for part of the planning? I mean, it strikes me both from the Park and Rec and from the NRCC that there's like dependent on the size and scale of a particular project where something would flag for consideration for one or the other. And just to kind of, at least in terms of the planning process, maybe make a recommendation to council to have something that, if it rises to this level, flags some kind of engagement with either committee.
I lobbied pretty hard for that. I was a builder and did some developments, and my experience is the more a project is coordinated up front and gets the feedback, the easier it goes through the development process. But the sort of general sense is we've created our LDRs to give guidance and then let them run. So if someone wants to come in front of council and make a recommendation, I would welcome it, but that's not the sense right now. The other thing that was talked about was committees are rarely coming to the council nowadays. And you guys are welcome to come make a presentation and talk about what's going on. If you have suggestions for council, we're very open to hearing them. So just letting you know that if you guys decide the chair and someone else want, or whoever want to come and give a committee presentation to council, we'd be totally open to that.
Okay,
Sorry for the segue.
that's all right. Thanks for jumping in. So we talked about volunteer needs. Now committee vacancies.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so we have 3 vacancies. I just emailed you, the application. And then Oliver and Aaron, their spots are also up, which is obviously gonna be open, for new people.
Are they reapplying or are they stepping down?
They're,
They're not, they've both made it known that they were not gonna
yeah,
reapply.
so we're gonna, so like information, I guess, so applications are available through the website. And you can apply through May 28th. And now I might screw up some dates, Lori, if you, I mean, is council looking at them on the 5th and 6th?
We're gonna look at them on the 2nd, I believe, at our council
Okay.
meeting. Right now, there are 35 positions
Yeah.
to interview for. So it can be a lot of interviewing for council. So on the 2nd, we're gonna be reviewing the positions and who's applied.
Yeah.
And if there's only an incumbent applying for a position, we're looking to see how we can streamline and not necessarily have to do all interviews.
Yeah.
So, and then I think it's the 5th and 6th.
Yep. Is,
We have slated for
Yep.
like 6 hours of interviews.
and then appointments start on the 16th, I think is what
I think so.
Jesse said. So I guess that was a question that I had for this committee. I guess it really doesn't make a difference because they weren't coming anyways, but that June meeting, like, we won't have the new people
No,
in time for that meeting.
we won't.
So we can push back the June meeting.
Are all 3 seats vacant or are
No,
just 2 vacant?
Yeah, just 2 are vacant, and
Okay.
then Cindy's gonna reapply.
So it's 2 vacancies.
Yeah,
Okay.
but like 3 spots technically are opening up at the end of
Yeah.
FY 25.
Not seeing that, will be nice.
But incumbency is different than vacant.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Just curious for structure, have we thought about making the 2 vacancies alternates for the sake of making quorum easier?
We have not discussed it, no.
To do that, that'd have to go to council. And you'd be reducing the size by 2 and then having 2 alternates.
Yeah.
It's a good idea if you're having trouble, getting a quorum.
Which a few committees have been challenged.
Yeah.
Including ours at times.
I mean, yeah, ours has,
That's not a bad idea for meeting quorum.
no, I mean, that's with ours, like 2 people just going MIA for the last
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah.
Like, if you get people who are more,
If you get people who are more consistent, you don't have to
Invested,
worry
yeah.
about it, but
I mean, because we have, I mean, we've still been meeting, there have been obviously.
Yeah, so like I was just thinking like last month,
Yeah.
how many people showed up
Yeah.
to this board?
Who was it? Cindy, you were here, Brett, and.
there were just 3, and
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Mike, you were in Paris.
And I was just
Uh,
You were here, no?
Yeah.
Weren't you? You were here.
Well, Lori, is there any reason not to
Yeah.
run with that idea so
well,
that it might be introduced as an alternative option for committee structuring across the board?
I
So
think
that,
it's a great
so
idea
that
to
a
bring
committee could
forward.
make a choice.
Yeah,
And even if you knew that you were encountering a problem in the middle of people's tenures, that you might opt to make a declaration. And if the door was open for that kind of structuring, then yeah, so that might be contribute to some of the problems that other committees have.
and whether you reduce the committee by two, create two alternates, or whether you keep it the same size and add an alternate or two,
Mhm.
accomplishing the same, just making them so that you've got a bench in case.
Yeah.
And I mean, in this case, because it's just us and we all have a seat at the table, it doesn't really matter whether someone's an alternate or not, they would still be able to say their piece.
So the actual role of the alternate would be treated as if they were a full-fledged member of the committee. We're really just creating,
Alternates would only, if there's something that's being voted on, alternates would only vote if a committee member is not present.
right,
So if you've got 5 and 2 alternates, and all 5 are there and the alternates are there, the alternates are just like any other citizen.
so
But if one of the committee members are missing, then they step into the role of being a committee member.
So if I'm an alternate, I don't have as much incentive to attend the meetings as if I'm a full-fledged member. Sort of a backup, but it's not as if I am called only in the event that there is known to be a deficiency in a quorum for an upcoming meeting. I'm expected to attend every meeting.
You're encouraged.
So you'd be encouraged, but I know,
Yeah, it's a different structure compared to
Yeah.
DRBs. So like with DRBs, because of that voting structure and the quasi judicialness, if you have the alternates, it kind of throws everything out of whack. But for us, since we're an advisory committee, right, by structure, you just kind of step in place, but you just wouldn't be able to vote on the minutes or vote for any sort of.
or if you guys are making a decision
Yeah.
to bring an initiative forward or
Right.
that kind of stuff.
But you'd still be able to put an input on that initiative or on that action item, so it's not like your voice would be discounted in any way.
Did Shelburne use alternates for committees?
Shelburne did for DRB, but Winooski does
know.
it for all their committees, so
Is that, they didn't for all?
they do it for all,
So
so.
they do,
yeah.
okay.
So I haven't had a quorum issue in my entire tenure yet, because we have 2 alternates for all of our committees, it's fantastic.
Well, I will, that's a great concept,
And that's not an issue that they don't show because they don't feel
Right.
as, it's not an issue.
It's
The
not an
alternates-
issue, but it's also not, it also relieves the pressure on the
the
regular
actual-
members too.
yeah,
yeah, if your kid's got a ball game or something, you're
Exactly.
more inclined to say, I can make it.
Yeah.
Cause I know I'm not gonna mess up the quorum. The big issue I see with that is with the number of committees we have and some of the sizes of the committees, getting a full slate can be a problem. Getting an additional 2 alternates just increases the load.
Well, reduce the number by 2.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you still have the same efficacy.
Mhm. And
Well,
you have more
run it
people
by
involved.
your other,
It's in my notes for my next meeting. Are you still running the DRB down in Shelburne?
No, in Winooski.
Oh, in Winooski, okay.
changes communities at least once a year.
Why not? It's good to know them all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Have gun, will hire. Okay, so that covers committee vacancies?
Yeah.
good idea came out of that one. We struck gold there.
Yep.
Thanks, Ravi. Park and Rec month, heads up. You've already mentioned that, or?
No, I mean, that was when, we had talked in our April meeting about July's Park and Rec month, doing a joint, like other paper thing with NRCC.
Okay. So how does that get carried forward?
The committee, I don't know.
Somebody volunteer to co-author an article, or
Yeah.
was there anything more to it?
This was fun. Like, we were talking in our meeting about doing this.
Yeah,
I'm not writing an article. This is a joint RMP committee and NRCC thing.
okay.
So you guys have to like.
So we give thought, so,
We thought
okay,
it would be good-
committee.
We thought it would be good in Park and Rec month, July, to do something in the other paper,
So-
but I am not doing it.
To have an article for the other paper,
What's that?
an
To
article for
to
the
do
other
something,
paper.
yeah, and we thought it would be good to do something.
Why our parks and open
With
spaces are
NRCC
important.
article.
In conjunction with the master
I
planning
mean,
process?
yeah, I mean, it like could hit on that, but just it like overall.
But it's
talking
Park and
about-
Rec
yeah,
month.
talking about
Yeah.
our parks and open spaces and kind of partnering.
So it
with
could
them
be
instead of,
anybody from
like,
either
two separate
committee.
things. Yeah.
It could be co-authored.
Mm.
There are some pretty good writers on this committee, if I remember correctly.
Has this been brought up to NRCC also?
No, not yet.
But nothing's gotten done yet.
And is this something that you wanna have be joined between the two
I
committees?
think it would be like kind of
That's
nice.
true.
Right.
We
There's a way
need to
to
do it.
do it.
That we-
Like instead of kind of having the two separate things as we're coming together on this master plan. During July, they could do something together.
Is Natural Resources meeting tonight?
No, they just
They
met
met on
last week.
Monday, I think,
Or
or
it
they
was
met last
yeah.
week.
Okay,
Oh,
so
on
my
Wednesday.
quick thought on this one is, how about a note being sent to both committees?
Yeah.
Just indicating, hey, July is Park and Rec months. Would there be any interest from either committee, together or separately, to consider authoring of an article? Now, it doesn't have to be an article.
No.
Isn't this just sort of, hey, it's the month, is there anything you wanna do? Do you wanna make an announcement? Do you wanna, maybe meet and take a picture at one of our parks? That could be even simpler, or take a little collage of 3 or 4 parks with committee members saying, hey, look at what we got here. So that's another option to writing an article. I know an article can be pretty tedious.
Well, I don't imagine it being terribly long, like 5 paragraphs.
Are you stepping up?
Just have ChatGPT.
You gotta hear that.
Now, I guess here's the question that I have too. If, I know we're trying to get Parks and Rec month. Do we wanna try to have an action for folks, like tie it into
yeah, I
doing the survey or something?
Yeah, I mean, it might be something with we're talking about. Like trying to
Asking the
find-
community?
I mean, whether it's Alistair and Catherine, I mean, those would be the kind of.
I
depending
think
on if
that's a
they-
great idea.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they wanna do it. They would.
You pivoted pretty quickly there.
And then, yeah, I mean, it could parlay into the survey.
That would be
It
good.
sounds like it would really defining what the article purpose is would really dictate.
Which
What
I
the
think,
structure
like,
looks
yeah, I think the master, like, it could be, revolve around the master plan, and if it can be joint with the two groups together, it would be nice, considering everyone sees them as like two separate things, because you can do something together, talking about the master plan.
A master planning report from
Yeah,
the
yeah, from the
two
advisor,
committees.
yeah,
I guess this would be my question. I sort of see a flow of potentially 2 articles. So the first article happens sooner and says, hey, here's the survey. We need your community input to get everybody's perspective on where this fits. Please fill it out. Then come July, hopefully there'd be some preliminary results and be able to say like, hey, we asked you what you thought. Here's a couple of headlines. We're still working through. Here's some headlines about what people said they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't see the responses. I don't know what like CRO or
See what
with
CRO
Well, I guess,
Yeah.
how long are they keeping it open for?
don't. I don't know the exact date.
I think it's on there.
It's on the
So are you
website.
referring to the
But like I
doc
can,
thing
I
that's
can
going
see the
on, and is
responses
that
right now.
sort
I
of the
just don't
same
know.
as the
CRO
survey,
probably knows
or are they
more
two
about
different
it.
things?
No, I was thinking about the
No.
survey
I don't think so.
using
Then
it.
you can start spewing it.
I think doing the continued promotion of the
Mhm.
survey as opposed to talking about results,
Yeah.
saying, make sure your voice is being heard.
Mhm.
And then an article that talks about some of the key issues from a Rec and Parks perspective and some of the key issues from an NRCC perspective. That might, and at the end of that saying, remember the survey, that might generate some feedback.
So part of the question is July, is the survey still gonna be open in July? For the month?
I think it was gonna be open through the summer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Carolyn said that they were up to about 140
For the survey.
for the survey, which for surveys in South Burlington is pretty good, but for a city of 20,000, it's not great.
Doesn't compare to the dog.
Is that,
Doesn't compare to the dog
how
survey.
much did the dog survey get?
They were
500?
600.
Yeah,
But we found that there was
It's still
some
early.
discrepancies there, right?
Some discrepancies, but
It's still being debated.
oddly enough, they have trouble getting people to serve on that committee, yet
yeah,
they got 500 or
yet
600.
there's a lot of
people
opinion about
responding.
dogs.
Yeah, people have an opinion.
Strong
but-
opinions about dogs.
Yeah,
Dogs and pickleball.
yeah, I chipped in on, last week on a little comment on Facebook because of the poopies.
Oh, yeah, you chimed in on that, didn't you?
Made it as nice and polite
How was it taken?
as it
Was
could
it
be.
taken nice and
It was,
polite?
absolutely. I just said, just a reminder for all of our beautiful, dog owners, beautiful, happy dog owners, to just be aware, be responsible.
Pick it up.
I think for the people who haven't really focused on this or may not even be aware that this process is going on with the master planning. An article that focuses the public's attention on, well, what this committee does and why it is important and why this process of developing a plan is important to them. What it's gonna mean for them going forward in the future. I don't think that people who actually actively participate, a lot of people spend time thinking about this.
I think that's true about the city in general.
Well, yeah.
But here we are highlighting during Park and Rec Month, why this process is important to the people, not only who are currently using recs and parks, but those people who may benefit from their use in the future.
So I think a note is still kind of a good thing to both committees
Yeah, I'll
under
say-
the umbrella. Here were a couple of ideas that came up at the RMP committee. If you have thoughts, is there anybody, who'd like to step up, maybe do a collaboration or whatever? And see if we get the,
I think it would be good to have the representatives of both committees write it, and Leo's point is well taken. just to have it be, where they can kind of help them engage in the process, try to help them engage in the process. I thought that was a good thing to, help to say what we're doing and I don't, saying what we're doing is a huge process, but maybe just directing them toward your info, your website and saying. I also like your idea too, Mike, about just having people do a little selfie of themselves by the park. I mean, why not do a selfie?
Well, remember everything that you did, you could even consider going out and
There might be a,
republishing, yeah, that's
you
right,
gonna do?
okay. Well, then an opportunity to kind of come at it through an even different lens.
So, well,
so.
All right, so
they'll
we know
come
what
up
we're
with
gonna do.
something, our representatives will come up with something good.
Right.
Pass the buck.
Well, they should be really committed, right? They're there.
They were both at the meeting on,
Yeah, so
on
they're,
Wednesday,
yeah, so
yeah.
they're both all in.
yeah,
So that we wanna get our residents all in now,
Yeah.
so, all in.
Okay, so we're gonna get into number 5 in a moment. Which again, although it says open space fund discussion, this is,
I just moved it down to the bottom.
you did, okay. It's directly related to the master planning process.
so I was just looking at this map and noticed that J.C. Park and City Center Park are reverse labeled on here.
I thought I saw a reaction from you over there and it was,
And it's like, what? That's not City Center. That's not
No,
J.C.
they
Park.
screwed up JC Park.
Yeah, you saw that? So that's already been reported back?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
printed on the big one too.
It's like,
Yeah,
that's J.C. Park.
I know, I saw that like right when I saw it.
On City Center Park, any like update on progress back there with, I know they're doing all the,
That trail work.
yeah,
Yeah, I think, so there's like the signage out there right now with all the like warnings and
yeah,
all that stuff.
people are like cutting through already.
They don't
Yeah,
have Goose
supposed-
Park on here either.
Huh?
You don't have,
So technically, I don't know. Like, that's not listed on our website. Like, we do stuff there,
yeah,
but I don't know.
is it city owned?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
So
there's
it's
that
an open
stormwater
space
line.
or a
Yeah.
park.
I'm just wondering why it's not
yeah, no, it's not listed.
marked on this map. I think that's another thing that should go back to them. And
Cause I don't know, like, I'll send it over to them,
yeah,
but like other stormwater ponds. Like, don't, but it doesn't have the trail, like. walk
doesn't have the
path.
trail
Yeah,
and the
walk-
name and
yeah,
the, yeah.
Yeah,
And is there any talk about creating a connection to City Center Park from City Center?
yeah, that path,
Yeah.
yeah, there is a path.
Is the
yeah,
path, is the
yeah.
path up already where?
No,
Not yet.
but it should be starting this summer.
Okay,
Yeah,
Like,
so
isn't
that's
it
been
like
being
a,
talked about.
so it's not gonna go to Goose Pond, Goose Pond.
No, it's gonna go
It's gonna go around,
into, yeah, and it's gonna have like
Okay.
one of those story walks and
Okay.
the whole 9 yards.
Story
in there.
walk, it's like those raised, like,
Yeah, I have, let me actually, I
I
can
saw
pull
a
it.
visual of
up.
it somewhere.
Let me see if I can pull it up. I'll throw it up on the screen. To show you like where it's,
so it'll go around and come out by Healthy Living.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Let me, I can probably just pull up a map. You guys can keep going, I'll try and find it.
Question I had on the map. Why is Chappelle's Florist and Must Love Yarn?
Because we do programming there, so they're highlighting like places that we do
Okay.
stuff at.
Well, it's a cool map,
Yeah,
good one, kind of foundational to the master planning process to be able to see the big picture and the different uses and applications, and I'm sure there's still some more Q&A when it has to do with some other land, some other space in the community, so to
We
It's
have
good.
all these easements? It's wild.
We have all what?
The
Robert?
yellow lines, the yellow copper lines for easements for future paths potentially.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna,
Here, Lori.
you found it?
This is,
There we go.
it might take me a little while to pull it back up. So
Yeah.
Alana is the
Spirit
in this
Dorset.
project.
Or no, Dorset's Heinsberg.
Yeah. You can actually get to Lewiston.
Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah. Completely separate from the
Yeah.
roadways.
That one actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
'Cause then it kicks you out by Tilly.
Mhm.
Tilly down. Yeah, I actually really like that one, cause then it takes people off of Kennedy Drive, that crosswalk is like super dangerous.
But I think it's super wet over there, it seems like, because it's right next to the freeway,
Yep.
so I think that it'd be pretty tricky.
So I have to figure out what we're looking at.
Next page down, maybe.
So here's the map. So this is Market Street here
Yeah, and Garden Street.
and Garden Street. And
Again, path overlay and path overlay.
yeah, so this is, so like right now, there's part of that path, so if you're going into Goose Pond, it like abruptly ends,
Yeah.
and this will connect you
Because you can't
into
get- you can't
City
get
Center
over
Park,
this.
cause this is going into City Center Park from Barrett Street.
Yeah.
And then you'll
Yeah.
also be able to get in off of Garden Street, and you'll be able to go the whole way.
So is there gonna be this is where the stream's going, so is there gonna be a bridge over that or something?
Yeah, there's a bunch of, and Alana's gonna be better able to answer it, but that's what this stuff is.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
the park connection, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
and I think, so if you go to Goose Pond, I haven't looked recently, but like if you're looking at it, the entrance on the left, there's a bunch of like paperwork there. I think it's for the start of this project.
Got it, and complete by the end of this year.
That's the goal, but it would be a question for Alana.
Nice.
Are the stormwater ponds all on? Or are any of them on city property, or are they mostly on development property? That's a question for,
That's stormwater.
yeah. Okay. So I hadn't even thought of those, but
Well, yeah, but
there are a
not-
lot of stormwater ponds around South Burlington.
Yeah, I mean,
And
similar to,
are they open space?
well, yeah, there's one right behind me.
Well, the
out
majority
on-
of them, if it was part of a development,
If it's part of a development,
and it's the developer or the association's
Mhm.
responsibility to, fulfill reporting requirements.
yeah,
And maybe even like the cleaning, but I suppose you don't need to clean if you're compliant, but So with respect, a lot of them are privately held by the HOAs. I don't know how many are.
I just didn't know how many of them are city owned.
I'm guessing that more are
More
HOA
are-
owned.
I'm sure more are privately owned.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering, in terms of open space,
Mhm.
if it makes sense for them to be on the map.
Well, there's a question.
Yeah,
I mean, it's more like a utility facility though, in a lot of places, a lot of cases, right? So that's usually
Yeah, it is
gated
a
around, fenced around, exception to the one across the street, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there was one right behind where I live though too. I live on Kennedy, so like O'Brien, I think it's like the O'Brien Home
Yeah.
Stormwater Pond. That one has like trails around it.
yeah, some
There's a
of,
few,
some
but
of
others,
them,
there's a bunch of them also that are just like over by veterans where it's,
Yeah, I just think of the one by
Fenced in
by
area.
Samansky that I run by, that one's completely fenced
yeah,
in too.
yeah.
I think it would also be good to like define what each place does, like JC Park, softball, baseball, art, sculpture, things that are there at each park. Events that take place there, I think it would be really, that's like would be really nice to have as like, okay, in a list, JC Park does all of
Well, you had a
that.
single list. Remember, we talked about this with the reports. Remember that were being done, when we reviewed the questionnaire that was provided by the consultant and how we felt they weren't effective at congregating questions that had similar areas of concern. And you check off the box. So let's just say you got a list
Mhm.
of 15 or 20 characteristics. And they're there, so you get your list and it's either 1 through 20 or A through whatever. And then if you have your individual parks, you indicate, okay, amenities that are present.
Mhm.
And then you have the letters or the numbers. So you don't need to do narratives on each of the parks, but you just have, you know, you cross-check what those are uniformly. So it'd be an easier way to cover that territory.
Yeah, I was just also just thinking it would be good for our residents to know what every place has to offer. You know, just
Right.
you know,
Just a
the Overlook
description
Park.
Of each
Yeah,
one, a
just
brief
a brief
description, so that-
description, so it's not this, because this is great, but it doesn't say anything to a resident.
Yeah,
And-
Most people
think
have not been to every park.
I mean, that's true. This is also printed out on, like, if we
Yeah.
start describing what's in all these
No,
parks.
no,
it's
no,
like-
I mean on a separate paper, like just having like almost like a, a map. And you fold this over and then here JC Park does da 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 da. This park does this open space does this. You know how when you do a travel map,
there was
You
kind
know?
of,
Yeah, I think, but for this purpose, like this works really well.
beautiful, no,
This is good for this
is good
purpose,
for this
but-
purpose, but for the resident.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, which we do,
Do you have?
were you
like
there for the
online.
conversation on Tuesday, Adam, where we were talking about the trail system that we have, which a lot of people don't really know where it is and what it is,
Yeah.
or what the parks are, and talking about actually having really legible maps that are either paper maps or PDFs on the website that people can actually see.
Yeah,
Oh, this is what's at Red Rocks and this is how to get there, and
A legend was the word I was looking for.
yeah.
So
I mean,
you
this
kind of got that at work
kind
there,
of,
don't
it
you?
doesn't break out as detailed as like the type of fields, but.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of what you're,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a legend there that indicates the activities that you will find in each one of those parks.
Yeah.
cool, and then there's like below.
yeah, so like. Baseball fields.
Yes, so this is something that does exist right now.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
that's nice.
Yeah.
And where is this?
This is
Just
on
on the,
our, this is
on
on our
the parks
website.
website?
Yeah, just under the parks and facilities.
So that alone would be an easy thing to put in the other paper.
And it would be
I mean, a lot of
kind of
people
a
don't
cool
know.
thing to have in one of the little plastic handout things at park entrances.
Mm.
So that it's where people actually interface with it.
And to have a code.
Yeah,
With your phone,
Right, yeah.
so we go
Yeah.
the
to.
little QR code and, but, or having this map as part of the signage
Mhm.
with a QR code on it, so you could pull it up on your phone.
Man, what's on the menu here?
The other thing,
Mhm.
and maybe it would be too complex to add into this one, but another map would be interesting to see where the passive open space paths are that people can
Yeah,
take advantage of.
That was my question with this too, because the open space doesn't split out what's like an agricultural open space, like bread and butter
Yeah.
and dock, they're, I mean, they're open spaces, but they're not for the public, it's for the goats. So, so it'd be good to demarcate, like open space in terms of accessibility, versus open space that is just like conserved.
Mhm.
They're really part of private open space.
but the Vermont Land Trust property down off of Heinsberg Road, they're hoping to get that set up so that it is open with public trails. And
Right.
so a lot of this is
Yeah, I mean, with
Working
Vermont,
through
yeah,
transitions.
Vermont Land Trust is also, they have private ones, right? And they have agricultural holdings and they
Yep.
also have public ones, so.
I guess the point being, like, if there was a aggregation of where there are foot trails, whether it's conservation land or whatever, that,
well, even the South Village
Yeah.
Mhm.
conservation space has a lot of trails in it.
Also, for pocket parks with Queen City Park, it says non-city, so is that a private? open
It is
space?
municipal.
Okay.
It is municipal, but it's owned by the fire district, not by the city.
that's.
And that actually doesn't show. That's something to point out. It's got the, our little green, our park, but it doesn't have, Queen City Park has quite a bit of other land that it owns. It is technically municipally owned land.
Yeah, cemetery is misspelled,
So is Winooski.
should be SEME, not A. I had to check just to make sure
SE
I
or
knew.
CE?
And what was,
CE?
Yeah,
it should be E, SE,
Cemetery starts with C.
SE, I mean, I'm sorry, am I saying S, sorry, CEMETERIES, and Winooski's misspelled too?
Like access.
44.
Oh, it is misspelled, isn't it?
Yeah, good catch.
Laura, you didn't catch that one.
No. Never be an editor.
This is quite the process here, the map's getting
Scrutinized.
scrutinized.
Well, this is important, it goes to the
Yes.
people.
I think this is,
At least some of whom can spell.
Yes.
These are mainly just gonna be in the plan document, right? It's not gonna be printed out or distributed.
we have one like giant one, that's it.
Will they generate, this will be on software. And someone will be able to go in and click on a number and get information about that park or that open space or whatever it is that what they're considering as a part of the report?
Nah, I mean, this map that like we printed off, basically it's like goes along with the whatever they want to call it, like the meeting in a box. So it like shows people when they're filling out, which like when you're downstairs doing them, it asks you a bunch of questions about like what we have, what we don't have, what you want to see, what you'd use. And then there's one which I don't have it down there right now, like a giant one of these, just so people can like see the city. When you do this survey, you're able to go through and like kind of pick where you need parks. But this isn't like an interactive, it's just printed out on a giant sheet to go along with the meeting in a box.
So this is an information gathering map as opposed to an end product map that's gonna be.
There's really, yeah, there's really not even much like interactive. Like the other ones, you're like putting stickers on all, this is more just like a.
It's an info map.
Map of
Yeah.
the city, not a sticker placing map.
It is a good idea in the future, though. I like the idea of it interactive, you know, you go, I think that would be really nice to have it be interactive.
Mhm.
So just a nice forward thought, I think it's a good idea.
It's a good intern project.
Click on 47.
Yes, a good intern project.
Now, is there an open space fund?
Yeah, one comment that Adam made that related to the map, and it's tangent with the open space fund conversation, though, is that one thing that we want to do is look at the city and kind of identify where recreational and open space amenities might be located, areas where the community might be underserved. So that can be like an item. Our committee, we may want to devote a meeting to, what amounts to, what are our recommendations or positions on certain things. So as an example, the open space fund. I've heard over time people discuss that it might make sense for the open space fund to be re-engineered in some respect. Maybe expenditures of X dollars or less. The city can go out and, make a quick decision on them, but if it's more than X amount of dollars, given the enormity of the decision-making process, that the council shouldn't be able to just go out and kind of say, okay, we'll drop $1 million here. Because that process has been pretty, in some people's opinions, and I would share this opinion just to be candid, the process by which our council has made these decisions of where to allocate these resources has maybe lacked some input, hasn't been public enough, or what are the metrics that are employed, because if a cool property showed up tomorrow, people might fall all over themselves and say, oh, we better run at this, or some developer's gonna buy it. That's what happened with the Eau Claire property. And even though there was a bit of process involved getting some public opinion, the council's mind was made up really early on to do what it would take to make sure that Eau Claire would not fall into the hands of a developer. So open space fund anyway, that's one conversation. That's just one item, not here to kind of initiate a conversation about our open space fund, but that's an example. Another one could be, this sort of wanders a little bit, but the buffer zone, which is 100 feet in South Burlington, unless you're in city center, should, and is it our purview to consider making a recommendation on whether the buffer zone ought to be 50 feet in the sewer district as opposed to 100? Because 100 foot is really severe. If you've got a wetland any place on a site in an area where you might consider development. Now, if we've got a sewer district where we have municipal water and sewer, those are the areas where we want to congregate growth and development and housing. But if you have a 100-foot setback, you're heading in the different direction when you're talking about whether you're promoting housing or whether you're going to. So that's a conversation point. I don't want to get.
That's an LDR conversation as opposed to an open space fund question.
No, I'm just putting it out there that it has, if you're looking at how our spaces are going to be used, are they going to remain open? Are they going to be eligible for housing? It's a land use decision, and spaces that are currently undeveloped in our community probably fall under the category of open space. And the Natural Resources Committee will certainly have opinions about what you should do with open space that's not developed. So I think that may be, I mean, I look at it as being at least tangential to the process that we're talking about with master planning, open spaces and parks. I'm sure there are other examples, but our committee and possibly natural resources too, there's going to come a point where it's kind of like, all right, what do you want to see? What do you want to recommend? What are some of your goals and objectives out of this process that you want to get out there on the table for conversation? Because that's going to become policy decisions for how we're going to be using our open spaces.
I was gonna say, it sounds like what you're talking about are policy conversations. How do we use the open space funds? How are they allocated? Who decides how they're allocated? What are our wetland buffer setbacks? Why are they that size? What's the appropriate size? Those are how do those fall into
the master planning process? And one way or another, I wanted to introduce, I mean, the feedback could be, oh, no, not a part of the process. I mean, the folks sitting in the room could say, nah, we're getting a little far afield here, but I honestly think that land use policy is at the heart of this master planning process with open space and parks. Maybe not so much our parks, but with the open space.
So, but then you're talking about going into revisiting all our LDRs and saying, are these LDRs the LDRs we want after they have just gone through being approved? And it's an interesting conversation, but it seems like CRO is working with the LDRs and the regulations and the conditions that exist in South Burlington today, and are charged with making recommendations for where we need open space, where we need parks, what we need to do to manage our open space and parks.
All of that is good, but we've got open spaces right now, okay? The interim zoning open space committee identified every parcel over 4 acres that was undeveloped.
Yeah.
Then they made a list of 25 properties and they prioritized them. Now, all of those properties have zoning regulations that were on them. Okay, but what happened was that rather than being guided by the zoning regulations and what they implied for use, there was a political conversation about whether there should be development on those properties, and our city council decided that using open space funds to acquire these properties was a good policy decision. So the fact that you got zoning regulations on a part of property, that's just an inconvenience. If somebody wants to make a policy decision that they don't want to see development on that property.
Mhm.
So in any event, I personally promote the idea because I feel this way. And we've had some conversations on our committee about this. And I'm sure there'll be more, and people will have different opinions about it. But, you know, like looking at our future and looking at the remaining open spaces that exist in South Burlington, what's their future use gonna be? And if we're making a recommendation about open spaces and how, you know, we've got over 50% of our land that's already open, and we've achieved our goal. How much, are we gonna set a new goal for open space and go up to 55 or 60%? So anyway.
I think there needs to be like an incremental step, right? Because did you approve the resolution for housing targets, right? Or no?
Yes.
Okay, because that housing target set at 12,000 by 2050.
That's the low one, that's the.
That's the high, right?
I don't have the
Double check my
report in front of me.
If you're not familiar with the
I have the
2021
housing targets here, but.
that have been mandated by the state to all the regional planning commissions.
Mhm.
That is the high end, 11,378.
Yeah, 12, like, so it's like 12,000 by 2050, and it's like parabolic, so we have to additional
Yeah.
in order to meet our current housing needs, address people experiencing houselessness, and possibly accommodate future growth. So there's gonna be a change in the LDR potentially in order to meet the housing target, because that's a really lofty housing target for the city. So this is what I'm trying to get at, is that there should probably be something in the master planning process that talks about this, because council's already agreed to this, right? And then with that incremental step, then we can start talking about how do we change it if we need to change it, but first we need to have the conversation that.
So just to follow up on something you said, in the presentation that was given to us by the CCRPC and the planning department.
Mhm.
It is the opinion of both that our LDRs currently are designed to be able to support that kind of housing growth. So the conversation that was brought to council wasn't, you need to change your LDRs and realign your LDRs in order to meet these targets.
Yeah, it's
Where will
more of
those
a-
goals be met?
It's more of
What's
a
that?
trying to.
Where will those goals be met?
Well, there was a map that lays that out, and if you look at that map and look at how, and
Yeah, I've done like back of the napkin calculations for Winooski too, and I'm doing the same pitch.
Yeah.
Cause I know that our regulations can meet these targets too. It's more of a, like, because there's so much uncertainty, there's going to have to be. I can't predict the future. I know that we can build it. I just can't predict the future, just like Paul's probably telling you too.
Yeah.
I know we can build it, but I can't predict the future. So there's gonna be some sort of conversation
these
about it,
conversations
just
will
like,
go on.
they're gonna go on and on because
Yeah.
of the amount of uncertainty that's involved in our everyday lives. But I think that we need to have that conversation of, we are gonna have an open space master planning process, but the council has agreed to accommodate 12,000 new units by 2050.
How does that work?
How does that work?
Yeah.
And then we can start talking about policy changes, because that's probably gonna be one of the recommendations that would come out of it potentially, right?
And from the conversation that happened at council around that housing targets, the map, you go from the regional map to the county map to the city map. And the way the city map is laid out shows the corridors and the general scope of where development is happening. But how that happens over time, whether it is concentric and works its way out, or whether it's spread out over the whole land area, et cetera, is something that's controlled more specifically by the city in the way we handle our LDRs. So the development of the LDRs goes through, council directs it, but it gets public input. There's this whole process that happens. And the council's been elected to try and represent what they understand is what the city is looking for. And then the planning commission does the work they do to implement. And guaranteed, whatever the council decides, 100% of the people will not be happy. And how that sugars off as to who gets what is as much a political process as it is a nuts and bolts process. And we try to get the best guidance we can from our staff, which we have a lot of faith in. And they take guidance from us in terms of policy direction. So I'm not sure how deep down into this the Parks and Rec open space master planning process will do. Are we talking about setting a new course for the city of South Burlington? Or is the course that we're on the course that we want to be on? Given the elections that have happened and the council that's in place, the general picture is that the residents of South Burlington like what the council is doing and the direction they're taking the city. So unless all of a sudden there's this switch in the council or switch in the population's perception, there's a pretty clear path that the city is on, that the city staff and the city manager and the council are in fair alignment on. So it's always good to say, hey, does this make sense? But how did the 100-foot setback come about? Is it something that gets revisited in the future? Absolutely. But how does that tie into this Parks and Rec open space master planning process without having it end up taking 5 years? And we end up going into the debates of how are we running the city, as opposed to how do we get a document that we can rely on for really taking care of the needs of our citizens.
One of the bullet points that I forgot was the encumbering parks with permanent conservation easements. That was another one of the bullets. So in any event, our committee has some work to do so that we can process what it is, what do we want to move forward, expressing our thoughts and opinions through this process, because this process is a vehicle for expressing opinion.
Absolutely.
And, you know, some people don't gravitate to going to the planning commission. But this process here, there is a level of passion that people attach to their parks and their open space that may be a catalyst for the expression of public opinion that you will not see forthcoming when the planning commission meets to discuss what their agenda is going to be. So what is this process to the people who are involved on these committees and the public? I guess that's what we're going to be finding out.
Mhm.
But it is a great opportunity for our community to express their thoughts on parks and open spaces, and some of that's land use policy.
So I think this conversation that just got brought up at the end here would be, if this is something that this committee is interested in having elevated, then it might make sense for the committee to get a space on the agenda for the city council and come and make a presentation. Because I can go back as a city councillor and say, this is what came up in the committee meeting and pass it on. But if it's something that you or you as a committee want to see get legs, it takes at least 3 council members to get something on our strategic planning agenda for the year. So coming and making a pitch to the council and saying, this is what this committee wants to see move forward, would be a way to get this agenda heard. Or going and talking to individual councilors before doing that.
Well, that does get a little granular. In the short term, what we're trying to do.
It's just a little. You mean 100-foot setbacks is focused?
I think what we're trying to do initially here is to take a look at the survey results and try to tailor a plan that will expand, modify the existing what's in place to respond positively to the survey results and what the people seem to want within the confines of the available funding and the realities of the staffing.
Yeah. So that's coming back to the open space plan as opposed to the conversation of the open space fund.
Now, is that the 200 people that have responded to the survey? Just a question, because we have,
Well, we all have all those people that came to the open house.
And are they the people that answered the survey?
They answered
Is it the
the
same 150 people that came to the open house that filled out the survey, or are we actually getting a broader?
But it still shows a segment of our population.
Absolutely.
And that segment is an active segment. And they are wanting to see certain things. And because that's all we can base our actions on are the people that responded. And so
The feedback we get.
yeah, the feedback we get, so it's not just a driving force, because it's a small group, that group should drive us because they actually gave us information.
Yeah.
But,
Where are we with the master planning process?
Yeah.
How much more work is left? Adam, are we like midway through, a third of the way through?
I mean, we've gone through, I'll pull up the calendar again.
Okay.
Are we supposed to have a draft?
but what if we had
Send
one
back
meeting?
by-
I mean, all I wanna say is you got this big process.
Yeah.
We had one meeting
We've got a ways to
at the
go.
Yeah.
beginning of this process.
yeah, we've had our representative, Alistair, there.
I'm just trying to figure out, maybe we should just trust the process.
Yeah, that's-
I think that CRO is doing a pretty remarkable job with what they're doing. They've had only one meeting with you, but they are doing a tremendous amount of work. They're trying to gather the information and the data to start creating the bones for this master plan. They're having monthly meetings with the liaisons from the committees. Alistair's not here tonight to speak to you about what happened. I've given you a little bit of a feedback. And I would say that this process is still gathering speed. It's far from the crest of the hill. So there's a lot of time for feedback and continued fleshing out. We don't even really, I mean, this is a great map because it shows our parks and open spaces in a way that is clearer than our city maps do. And they're getting a ton, I shouldn't say a ton, but when I look at the portable box or whatever you call it.
Mhm.
Every time I look at those boards, they are covered in dots. Those aren't coming from just a few people, so they're getting a lot of feedback, and I like the word you use, trust the process.
So we're gonna have a new pool sometime soon.
Yeah, right.
But this actually, something that Leo said reminded me of this too, and I thought this might be a part of where the open space went. So we have deferred maintenance on a lot of the recreation and park facilities. I suspect coming out of this process that there are going to be a few things with big price tags. Pool, potentially indoor,
Indoor rec center.
whatever,
Yeah.
and we've had some modest tax increases, we've had increases because of the school district budget. The idea of getting any sort of additional, well, like that, like people will say yes until they have to.
Until they
think-
have to pay for it.
One of the questions is thinking about of the resources that, can there be a portion of thinking about the open space fund to support, at least if we're thinking about deferring, changing revenue streams, thinking about taking care of deferred maintenance on parks and existing facilities that we have quite a bit of, that instead of dedicating city budget, using some of that, still open space, and still trying to pay attention to that and be creative about how we're looking at meeting constituent needs.
So the way those funds are used is dictated by by what was approved by the voters.
Yeah.
The open space funds, there was a revote on wording for it to make some of it available for management and maintenance. That happened 2 years ago.
It was longer than that. I think we've got 2 or 3 years left. I thought there was 10 years that there was, what,
So there was a question for the penny for pads that came up this year. There was a push to try and move some of that money from just acquisition to maintenance. It was decided that it wasn't time to do that yet, but if we want to move more of the penny for pads money to maintenance or some other type of acquisition, that would have to go in front of the voters. So you'd come to council, make a recommendation. If it got approved, then a resolution would get written up and it would get on a ballot. Without doing that, the funds are
Locked.
how they get used is predefined.
But some of the voters, some of the open space funds can go to maintenance? Is that what the
Is
voters
it
said?
25%?
I forget, but there was a portion of the open space funds. They identified a dollar amount and they decided that over a period of 10 years, that amount of money would be allocated on an annual basis. And I think the time for that is, there's still a few years left, but there's more that has gone by than there is left. So there was a recognition in the past that it made sense that some of the open space money, because initially the open space fund was just for open space.
And it was just for purchase.
Yeah, and then it got amended to include recreational, parks and recreational facilities. So the language got amended and all of a sudden the money could be spent to acquire land for the purposes of a park, not just necessarily for an open space.
Which so far, how much has gone toward maintenance or toward the parks?
I forget the exact amount.
So that would
don't
be
know.
nice to know because that would be a good thing.
I
to
do
know.
remember at the time when the decision was made that people felt pretty happy about the decision and the amount of resources that was being directed. I mean, politically, the outcome of that conversation and that process was pretty well received. by all of the stakeholders that participated in it.
It's just what has been done, I guess, is what I'm wondering. How much has been toward maintenance and how much towards recs and parks? That would be good to know.
Adam, are you willing to,
Well, I'm
Get
looking
that info.
right now, yeah. I mean, I can ask Erica for that info, but I'm pretty sure, I mean, right now.
you'd have to look at the resolutions to see what the
Voters.
allocation is right now. I think,
It's a
I think
percent of
25
the open space.
I think 25% of the open space fund.
That may be the number.
So
But that's just
it
a-
would just be good to know.
That's just a wag,
Yeah, it's just a what, Lori?
a wag,
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Don't hold me to it.
I have thought about something, and this is really weird, and I know we're all wanting to go, but do we consider when we're thinking of open space, people's lawns? I mean, because there is an element of relaxation when you have a lawn and property, and you don't so like, you don't really need to go to a park per se all the time, you know, within the distance, whatever distance, what is it supposed to be? We're supposed to have quarter of a mile. I just think that it would be good to also consider how much lawn space there is in South Burlington. Because that itself is also an open space. I'm privileged to be on a lawn. And I know that for me, that's relaxation. You know, and I just find it interesting because there is that part of it where there are a few things that really, I'm not sure it's, you know, a valid reason to have it every half a mile from certain places, because many places have that relaxation. They have that lawn, they have that relaxation. And I just feel like maybe we need to revisit that too, because we need to consider how many acreage is in South Burlington, how many acres are lawns. Because yes, when you're in concrete jungle, you need to go and go to a park.
Except that's all private property. So
It
like,
is
let's say,
private
I,
property,
like
but-
say, you have a lawn, I live next door to you in an apartment building. I can't go play on your lawn.
No, I know that, but I mean, I think that it needs to be considered in terms of relaxation and open space, those lawns. And not that, I mean, I believe that we should consider where those parks should go. Like if people have a whole bunch of lawn, they don't need to have that open space, you know, a half a mile away from them. They can bike or walk or go whatever to do extra, and I do that, to go somewhere extra, but I don't need that a half a mile away from me, you know, a park. I won't go to it.
So when you're looking at a community that has eighth of an acre lots, as opposed to a community that has half acre lots, you're saying the folks with the half acre lots don't need as many
much.
parks as the people that have the eighth acre
Exactly,
lots.
exactly, yeah,
So
exactly.
you're talking about density per acre, dwelling units per acre in different areas, and what are your dwellings per acre in relationship to your proximity to parks?
Exactly, and that's what, yeah.
Well, there's a tangency to housing policy that you can see whether it's where city is going or just in general in the future. Because we all know that here in city center, there's not enough open space to take care of the needs of some of the population that live here. So if we have housing policy that's going to be directed to dense development in already densely populated areas where there's not a lot of open space, then how are you going to address their open space needs? So there's a
Yeah.
influence on housing policy that you can see, where are we gonna locate our housing?
Yeah.
Do we want it to be here in city center, or are we gonna consider other locations where our housing needs are going to be addressed?
And if the density is high, do we need more park space?
Mhm.
And if the
And
density is low, do we need less park space?
that's my
To
feeling.
your question, yeah.
That's my feeling.
Which all goes into this task number 3 on the project schedule. The CRO is supposedly now in the process of, since mid-February, which is, since March, which is capacity evaluation and needs analysis. And also, they're supposed to be currently defining goals and exploring options, which I assume would involve this committee's input.
Which is kind of why I was saying, hey, guys, we need to get around the table and define a handful of things that we want to talk about. Maybe the setback was the wrong thing.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
so I did share with you they're coming. With that being said, like, this committee, when they do come, what are you guys, like,
Asking for it.
all we do is talking, like, but you guys, what are you gonna tell them?
Or what are you going to ask them
Yeah.
ahead of time? So if you would like to know what they have gathered in the way of information
Yeah.
to date,
They can share. with
ask
you,
for
but
them
then-
to come and give you a presentation on that so that you have something to respond to.
I mean, they've been.
Or if you're gathering information that you want to share with them, get that together so that when they show up,
Mhm.
you can say, we've had this discussion about dwelling units per acre and park proximity, and we want to make sure that it's included in the work that you're doing. With your, or what have you gotten for a needs assessment so far, and can you share that with us?
Yeah.
Being on the council, often we don't get feedback on a project until it's almost done. And it's like, at that point, it's hard to say, well, you missed the boat for us. So getting together the questions that you want to have them come and answer, as much as just having them come and give you a presentation.
I agree. I think we ought to maybe initially, each individually. It's sometimes hard to do things collectively that's specific.
Yeah.
A lot of good ideas are bantered around, but we don't have the bullet points to come away with that say, these are the 5 things we want CRO to be focusing on, so that we can meet with them and see how well they have done at addressing those concerns.
So 2 options that I can think of. One would be for you guys to individually send information to Alistair and say, Alistair, this is what we would like you to take to the next advisory committee meeting. Or Adam, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but Adam might step into that role and forward it to Silken.
Or
Or both, copy them both.
Or copy them both. I mean, do you have
as
suggestions for how
I mean,
they move forward
mean,
with
I
this without
think
swamping you?
I mean, that's what Alistair is,
Yes.
I mean, he's supposed to be
It's
the.
supposed to be your liaison.
I would think that
Or
as
it's like, I'm
as
the
a
point person.
preliminary step, we would want to have each member of the committee that has specific thoughts about what should be addressed by CRO in the process of its capacity and needs analysis, defining goals going forward, and circulate the questions or the concepts we have amongst ourselves by email. And then at the next meeting, sitting down and deciding which of those we collectively agree are worth pursuing the CRO.
So in terms of collective email stuff, you do need to be careful about open meeting law. So you can't have discussions if you are just putting out emails that are saying, here are things that I would like to have put on the discussion board. That works. If you're saying,
What do you think?
I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with that, that's a conversation that's supposed to happen in the public.
And it would. I mean, the whole idea is to put forth the former concept of what is it we want to include. And then we can collectively meet and discuss those items and decide which of them is meritorious.
So CRO is coming here, Adam, next month?
No, I don't have the date, but they're doing 4 meetings, 2 with you guys, 2 with NRCC. The first meeting for each committee will be dedicated to visioning, so we can learn the hopes and dreams of each committee has for parks and open spaces, kind of what you guys are talking about. That being said, like, you have to be ready for those
But we've
meetings.
already done that with them, didn't we?
Not in the kind of
Not in this
granularity that we're getting
capacity.
into now.
But what I'm like fearing is they're gonna come and you guys aren't gonna be ready.
We're gonna be starting from
I
scratch.
mean, this, like, we're having the same conversations every month.
Yeah.
And like, it's on this committee. This is your chance.
Yeah, this really helps. And, you know, I'm sure I could sit down at a computer and come up with things that I think are important for CRO to consider in connection with a needs analysis. And I'd be interested to see what others
Yeah,
think.
as should we all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this conversation's been a good catalyst, hasn't it? Boy, it was originally number 5 on the agenda, and what did it end up being? Eight, and I'm sorry about the setback, you know, but other than that, it was pretty
No,
Pretty
don't be-
well
Don't be
focused.
sorry about it. It's.
Yeah.
How big does it get? But in terms of process, it sounds like it would be really useful if you guys somehow have somebody who is gonna be a repository of all of this. So that, or a focal point for it, whether that's Alistair or
We've
whether
got
it's,
Alistair and Brett at
or
certain
whether
times
it's
then.
Mike, or whether it's you, Brett, or I know that some of the committees will use their staff person to do some of that collating, and I know Adam is incredibly busy, so I don't mean to be going there, but you guys need to think about how are you gonna get your thoughts coalesced so that you can really get them presented and get your questions answered.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll just send out an email and say these are the things and have Alistair on there too, and we just won't discuss it. So that's how we'll do it. Is that good?
Makes sense.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
And then we'll CC you, Adam, on it, just so you see our conversations. So each one of us is gonna do that?
I think that's a good start. I don't see how we will get through that in a standard meeting.
Yeah,
Maybe we have a special meeting.
so we know the path, to take.
And you guys could choose to have a special master planning meeting just to discuss this.
Friday, 5 o'clock at the Windjammer.
No, we really should. I think that is a good idea. We really should.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially if it's gonna be like 3 hours.
Yeah. In the past.
City council has done many more strategic planning or retreats as a council this year. And it's been really helpful for actually moving through stuff that's hard to get done in a regular meeting.
Mhm.
I think we should do that. We should, maybe in this email, should we do that? Yes, no?
Well, we're talking initially about expressing our own thoughts. So we're gonna go down that path first.
Okay.
Once you get your thoughts at a regular meeting, you can figure out if
Yeah.
you can handle it.
It's good to have a deadline.
We can't handle this.
Okay, I'll
Oh
entertain
my
your-
God, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, we gotta finish the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I second it.
All in favor, okay. Hey, thank you for your patience, everybody. Lori, thank you for all of your input and your guidance. You're